afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer and KATB.org. My name is Cammie Stephen and I am here with my co-host Betty. How you doing today, Betty?
I'm very well, very excited about today's show. Everybody's going to get to meet this young lady that we met recently.
Yes, we are joined in this studio today by our wonderful friend Nadja, and she is here to share her inspirational story about not only how God leads, but how you can rely on His leading. And I'll even just say this, to the extent that you would move to another country with nothing but a suitcase and a calling. And so I hope that grasps our listeners to just even stay in a parking lot for about 30 minutes and listen to this story. I have no doubt about the inspiration they're going to find in just hearing her story and just how compelling it is to see what God's done through you already and just the faith that it's taken for you to be here. So thank you for joining us, Nadja.
You're welcome.
Why don't you go ahead and just help us get to know you? I'm going to give you adequate time. We don't want to shorten it up at all, but tell us your story as best you can. I know there's a lot of details, but give us about 10 or 15 minutes and just tell us a little bit about how God's brought you here today.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you so much. So I grew up in a Christian home and I went to school. I went to college and I graduated as a nurse, as a RN. But I always had this longing in my heart to really get to know God better. And it was a time that I really told God, just tell me where I have to go, I will go. It's been a while, and then I didn't feel like something would happen. I just worked in a normal daily schedule in a hospital. And then one night I spent time with God again because I really felt like I'm so thirsty. I want just to spend time with my Father and to hear what He's telling me. So I was in my room at home and I was listening to worship. I was just with my Father, with God in my room. And finally I just heard the phrase, go to Alaska next summer. It just popped up in my head and I was absolutely not prepared of that because it would not make sense to me at that moment. So first I thought, well, that's a little bit silly. It's probably my own thought, and I had no idea where that came from. It was just out of the blue. So, but still, somehow I knew I was really so close to God at that moment. I was just spending time with Him. So, and I know His voice. So I felt like, yes, actually it is from God. So I just asked the Lord for confirmation throughout the weeks because it just didn't go away, this thought. So, but it didn't make sense because I would not have enough money just to go away. I just started a new job as a nurse and they asked me for a certain commitment and I told yes. And also I thought, well, what should I do there? I don't know anybody in Alaska and I have no plans. So as I was going on with that, I once had God gave me the verse Isaiah 55, or it popped up in my head when I was asking Him for confirmation. And in this verse, or in this chapter, it was written in the beginning that we can go even if you have no money, just go and drink and eat bread without money. And later on in Isaiah 55, it's also about that God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts and that His ways are higher and His ways are not mine. That's what the Lord says. So it made sense. And also it's about something, the nations, that you will go to nations that you don't know and the nations don't know you. So everything just made sense somehow. It's like, wow. Well, so I really believed, God, I'm going to do that. I decided in my heart, okay, I'm going to go because I know my Father and He will provide. So I was still struggling sometimes, and once again, people told me, well, do you plan now something? But I knew I'm not going to just plan on my own, but I want to know what God's plan is because it's His adventure. So as I was listening to Him, I just felt like I should open up a random book that was laying on the table in my home, and I opened the book up, and it was a passage about Noah, that he did not listen what people said, but he just did what God said, and that he's our role model. And it was again a confirmation for me, an encouragement that I should not be afraid or listen to people in a way of like, oh, you should start to organize. So I asked God again and again, do you have some details for me so that I know where I could start or to plan for this Alaska? So once I heard, or the name Mackenzie popped up in my head, and I have never heard that word before because we don't speak English and we don't have English. Well, we learn English, but we don't have English names as much. So I Googled it, Mackenzie, what could that be? So finally I found out that there's Point Mackenzie in Alaska, and I saw that there's a prison in this area. So I assumed, oh, maybe God wants me to have in a prison. And from another friend of mine, she gave me a church that, well, she knew someone in Alaska because of a Bible study that she did. And so this guy knew a church in Alaska. And my friend gave me this link, and I went to the homepage and I saw that they have all the ministries, and there was also Alaska Correctional Ministries among those ministries. So I saw that they have prison ministry. So I started to connect with the prison ministry, or I tried, and also with the church that I had, but nobody replied. Actually, I think it was a really good test of faith, because God, he had his yes. He has a yes for me, and maybe the circumstances, they didn't appear like everything would work out perfectly, but I still just trusted in him. And I think that's what he's doing often with us, that he has a yes for us, but we need to go on with that yes, even if it doesn't look like yet. So yeah, I didn't have anything yet. I didn't have people that I knew or a place to go where I could stay, but I had the plane ticket. That's the first thing that I booked. So I knew I will go in August, and one day was maybe a month before my flight. I still didn't have anything. I was spending time with my friends at a lake, and it just happened that there was this lady next to us. She was also swimming in the lake, and my friend just talked to her randomly, and she didn't understand because she spoke English and we spoke Swiss German. So finally, it's a miracle. So she's from Seattle, but she was on a Europe trip just by herself, and she was also a Christian. And we went on with talking, and I told her that I'm going to go to Alaska. So she was surprised, and she said, oh, I worked there for 2 years. Do you need some connections? I was like, yes, I do need some connections. So I was so glad. It's just a miracle how God worked it out. She was in my hometown in Switzerland. It's really small. So she gave me connections with a family in Anchorage, and it was a story again. It was a little bit, took me again faith, because she didn't reply right on, but finally 3 days before I flew to Alaska, I had the confirmation of this family that I can go to them and stay with them finally. So my parents were very glad, and me too, of course. So I took my suitcase and my backpack, and I did like a goodbye party at home with my friends, and I also gave my stuff away because I felt like I just want to do how Jesus told his disciples, just go and don't take a spare coat or shoes with you, just go, I will provide. And I thought I want to try that out because the Bible is true. So, and I came to Alaska. It was just an adventure. And so now it's been 10 months since I moved up here, and God is amazing how he provides in details. I was able to stay a month with this family in Anchorage, and I started to connect with the Alaska Correction Ministries. They immediately helped me to involve me, and I go to the women's prison 3 days a week, and I'm helping with a faith-based program where those inmates are participating. And the amazing thing is actually that God really provides for also for my desires as a young lady, because I didn't have family up here or friends, but it's written in Mark 10 verse 30 that when we leave our homes or our families, our brothers and sisters, for the gospel's sake, he will give us back 100 times. So I really experienced that. I have a lot of friends now and family and people, and also small things like people gave me bags of clothes, or I even a car I received from a couple from the church, or I was able to move to the valley after a while, where my church is, and I'm able to live with a old lady, and she's honoring me very much, and I don't have to pay for living there. And yeah, like really financially, it's a miracle how God provides me. The saving that I had when I came probably would have just be for 3 months maybe, and now it's been 10 months and I still have enough, and I don't lack anything, but that's what God tells us. So for me, it's really, I would like to encourage you women that you are very special, and God loves you, and he has a plan for you as well. And I'm not any more special than anybody else. I just said yes, and I think that's what is necessary. If God is waiting for your yes, if you say yes, even if you don't know what it's gonna cost, or I still have no idea. I know it's just the beginning of something bigger, but I said yes, and if you spend time with God and listening to him, because if I wouldn't have spent time with him, probably I would have missed this message. And also then trust like a child that what you hear, that this is from him, because he's your father, and as children we know how God talks. It's just, it needs time sometimes to really figure it out. Is it really God? But he will tell you. And also then take a risk and take the step to go. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:24, he says, he who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. Mm-hmm. And that's really, he did it for me. He called me and I said yes, and he does everything else. He does the rest. So, yes, that's
Nadja, you may
story.
have said this in the beginning, but I want to ask you just in case you didn't. I think it's important for people to know how young you are.
Oh, yeah. I'm 25 years old.
25 years old. And
yeah.
So that leads me to ask you, what did your parents think as you were starting to consider this leap of faith? And what were they saying to you during that time as you were considering it?
So at the very beginning, when I just went home and said, oh, I'm probably going to go to Alaska, it was so out of the blue, so they didn't really respond. Like, well, my dad, I think he thought it's just for a couple weeks. So so the topic was they didn't really went on and asking me, oh, well, but my sister said something else, so they talked about something else, and I was kind of discouraged a little bit. It's like, oh, because it means a lot what my parents say. They are my role models. But yeah, later on, as they saw the process and how God spoke to me, they were very much supporting me, and still today they are supporting me even financially or just with prayers. And they always said, yes, trust in God. He told you, you know. So yeah, they are supporting me a lot. It helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to ask you, if listening to God's voice so intently, is that the way that you were raised in your home? Did you observe your parents? I mean, I know that obviously they were wonderful Christian examples for you, but did they teach you how to discern God's voice to this extent that you would be able to trust him with such an endeavor?
I believe they really laid a foundation of the relationship with God. But there was a time when I sought God more. It was because of a young adults group in our hometown. They were really very much on fire and just going out and praying for healing and being this childlike, or having this childlike faith. And this boy that was really on fire, he always said, I just spent time with my daddy, I spent time with God, and I just listened to him. So that's where I realized it's it's simple actually. I can just go in my room and then spending time with God, like a father who is sitting just right in front of me, and I can talk to him and I listen to him. Yes.
Betty, I'm just going to keep rolling out the questions.
Go
So
right
you have
ahead.
to interject as you. Have you had any doubts since you've been here, Nadja, that you might have misheard God's voice and his leading? Have you felt, Satan try to attack you in that way, that you weren't listening, that this wasn't the right move?
Yes.
And how have
Well,
you worked
actually,
through that?
not like deep in my spirit, I always knew it's the right place where I'm at, but absolutely, it is more in emotionally or in my flesh. Just lately, I had a season, or well, maybe a week or two, really, I was homesick and I was doubting, well, maybe I should go back home and just working as a nurse again, because I didn't see things happening as I expected maybe to happen. And also I started to miss my family a lot. So yes, I had doubts. I was not so much on this adventure anymore, but God is amazing. He really made sure that he encouraged me enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I know again now, and he comforted me with people, but also just with his presence and with giving me scriptures or so I feel like I'm back on the road again, on the where the truth is, and I'm excited to be here again, and I don't want to go anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Now, do you intend to pursue nursing at all while you're here?
I was considering it for a while, but actually not, because it would take me almost a year of going through all the exams again, and I felt like it's not the season right now to do this. It's not what God called me to do for this very season. Doesn't mean that I'm never going to work as a nurse again, because I loved my job. Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to share your story with non-believers about what has brought you here?
Yes.
What has their response been as you try to tell them how you listen to God's voice?
Well, some of them, they asked, who told you to go? Because I don't know if they didn't hear that I said God or but some of them, one of them, she really said like, wow, you have such an interesting life. It's like very inspiring. I want to hang out more with you.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's neat.
Mm-hmm.
Nadja, what are your responsibilities at the prison? What do you get to meet with the women? Do you get to lead them in Bible studies? What exactly do you do?
Yes, I do. I'm involved in this faith-based program. The ladies there are actually already Christians, and I'm involved with. I do a class about relationship, where I facilitate it, and then I do Bible studies with also with a whole population of the prison, not only the program, and worship times with them, or sometimes on a Sunday service they ask me to do worship, to lead worship. And also in our program we do one-on-one counselings once a month. So I have 4 to 5 inmates that I'm responsible for, and just like a following up once a month and talk with them and work on their goals.
Do you get to spend time with a lot of young women your age? Have you been able to do that yet?
At the prison, you mean?
Or just in general?
In general. Yes, actually. Well, in this church that I'm going right now, there were not a lot of young people at the beginning, or I didn't know them, but then we started a young adults connect group, and that was very helpful for me, because I really felt like I need to meet some young people, because I'm still young. So
yes,
but
you need to remember that.
Right. But also here in Anchorage, I got to know your group of ladies, the front line. That was a very big blessing, and I actually met with them lately again.
Oh, good.
To have coffee.
Good.
No, it was not coffee. Actually, it was frozen yogurt, which is better.
Well, I know when you came and spoke to them, they still talk about it. They still talk about
Oh,
how much they
nice.
enjoyed meeting you, and you've really inspired one that told me yesterday or Sunday that she wants to be a traveling nurse now.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's amazing.
I think I might know that
I think you might know.
somebody.
I think you might know her too. We won't mention
Yeah.
any names.
Nadia, I hope I can articulate this question in a manner that it makes sense. But most people your age would be preoccupied with trying to find that significant other. I mean, that's kind of where the focus is at your
Yes.
age. How have you balanced just your pursuit of God and wanting to follow Him and then trusting Him with that
Mhm.
detail in your life?
That's a good question because it's very important, of course, for us young people to find the right husband or wife. But for me, I really allowed Jesus to be my lover of my soul and to pursue me as his bride. And I think that helped a lot, that I got to know not only God the Father, but also Jesus as my groom, actually, because he calls us, we're his bride as a church, but I believe also as individual. So I let him romance me for now. Well, no, forever, actually. I mean, he always will be my first. Always will be my number one. And I also trust him that he will provide for me the right husband. And I'm just going to wait because I know it's so important and I don't want to waste time by seeking someone, but actually missing my destiny besides that, because sometimes we believe, oh, I only can do this or that when I'm married, but that's not true. We can start right now because we have God, we have Jesus, we have the Holy Spirit. We can pursue our dreams.
Yeah.
And then eventually God will provide, God will bless us, or God will bless me with a husband at the right moment.
Yeah.
And I'm already glad that I waited until now because it changed my dreams, and my vision changed when I was 21 to now 25. So
Are you sure you're only 25?
I know.
There's a lot of wisdom packed in there.
well, it's only the Holy Spirit. Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say as well. I didn't have a Bible school that I did, or I didn't learn how to do prison ministry before. I just went because I knew I have the Word and I have the Holy Spirit in me. So I believe that we can really take more risk in such a way. Even Paul, he was completely changed in one moment and he was able to go and preach the gospel right away. He didn't have to go through a school first or through I don't say that school is not good at all. I mean, I support that very much. But if you believe, oh, you need to go through a certain education or Bible study before you could do such things, that's not true, because yes, that's not what the Word says.
I have heard for many, many years this saying that God does not always call the qualified, but he always qualifies the called.
Absolutely.
And I cling to that
Mm-hmm.
for all my life, everything that I do. And sounds pretty much like you do too.
Yes. And it does feel sometimes uncomfortable. At the prison, the beginning, I didn't know. I've never been in a prison before either. So, but God is helping. He who calls you, he will do it. So.
What I think is so awesome, too, is that we read stories about people in the Bible that have responded to God in such a way, and we are always so captivated by those stories. But to be, right here in today's time, living and meeting you and seeing the faith that you've had and just see that faith activated to this level. I mean, the way that God's moved in your life, Nadja, I just can't help but feel so set apart to just even have crossed your path and know that God even intended that. And each meeting that he allows you to have is so divine. It's just, I don't have the right words.
Well, your story's incredible. The fact that you're just 25 just makes it even more incredible that you were willing to leave your home, your parents, and come to a foreign country. You left Switzerland and came to the United States, which a lot of people think Alaska is a foreign country within itself, but you were willing to do that. You may have had doubts and questions, but you still came trusting that God was going to provide. And you sold everything you had. You came with one bag and a backpack.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what female even goes on vacation for 2 weeks with one bag?
Mm-hmm.
But you were moving here and you sold everything you had. And yet God has provided you with everything. I remember you
Yeah.
told me your dream had been to always live in a big house by the lake. And that's where you're living now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
God even provided that. You know, he even cares about the tiniest little details.
He does. Yes. I really have the most beautiful view and a very pretty house and room and bathroom, like lady style. And I did not expect that because I thought, well, I'm not going to ask that of God because I'm going to be okay with just a room and a bed. That's okay. But
And
God
he gave
is
you so much
good.
more.
Yes,
much
and
more.
he does that. He does that with you as well, with all of us. If we are obedient, he will bless us abundantly.
Do you think that the way that you responded to hearing God's voice would have been any different had you had children or a significant other? Would having responsibilities in that regard have changed how you responded to that, do you think?
If I would have
Would it-
decided in another way, you mean? Or
Right. Would it have been more difficult for you to be obedient had you had
Yeah.
those responsibilities? Do you think? I'm just thinking of a woman listening who might be
Absolutely.
feeling like she's feeling this leading from the Lord, but she's got a husband, she's got children. How does she respond to God's voice with those responsibilities?
I believe it's of course easier as a single person without responsibilities or family yet, but still I believe that God is the same with everybody. So I would say no. I would have reacted the same way, but I also believe that then God would take care of talking to my husband as well, or just to prepare my kids as well, because even if I'm going to be married, I still want to be obedient with my family and not, it's just right now and then I'm going to be stuck somewhere because I have responsibilities.
Thank you for answering that, because I think it's important to point out, because I think it'd be so easy to sit here and discount that because you say, well, that's easier for her. She didn't have the husband and the children and this and that. And while you had a career going and that was something you had to let go of. But obedience is obedience.
Right.
Regardless of where we're at in
Right.
life and what is tied to that, it is obedience.
Yeah.
So
But,
I'm
I
encouraged
think you're
by that.
wise in what you said, that you would trust God to speak to your husband, because God would never ask you to leave your husband
That's
Right.
to go do something. And you're very right in the fact that he would speak to your husband as well, and it would be a united effort.
Right. Absolutely.
Betty, do you want to share with our listeners just a way that they could potentially get in touch with Nadja if they wanted to ask her any follow-up questions? Could they visit your Facebook page through Alaska Christian, or?
They can, but Nadja also has a Facebook page. Could they
Yes.
contact you through that?
Absolutely.
But do you want to tell them how your name is spelled?
I can do that.
okay.
Yes. So it is Nadja, and the last name Kuenzi, Nadja Kuenzi.
And if for some reason you did not get that, you can contact us through Alaska Christian Women's Facebook page, because we love Nadja, and we are trying to
I love you too.
utilize her as much as we can, let her tell her story. And if you have a youth group or a group of young ladies, she's an excellent speaker, and your girls would love her.
Yes, I would highly encourage that, to just be able to sit in her presence and hear her story one-on-one and connect with you would definitely be a treasure for anybody to be able to do. We want to thank everybody for joining us today on another program of Living Well, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage or KJLP 88.9 in Palmer, or you can catch us online at katb.org.